Okay, my name is Opal Singleton. I work for the Riverside County Sheriff Department, and I work with all the undercover officers over the Special Investigations Bureau, all the narcs and intel and homicide and all those guys. And I work in human trafficking. So we are going to be talking about human trafficking, social media exploitation, and even some child pornography this morning, and something called sextortion. I also work closely with the San Bernardino County Sheriff Department, because what happens in human trafficking is they will seduce or lure in a young person just like yourself, and maybe they will start out of Moreno Valley, and then they will sell them over in San Bernardino or Colton and Ontario and going into Los Angeles. So what you see is all of us as law enforcement work together. So I'm going to be talking about some pretty tough stuff this morning. So I need you to take a deep breath and be tough with me, if you will. But it's more important that I share with you how all of this happens so that it does not happen to you. So we're going to get started right away now. In addition to working with the sheriff, I run my own nonprofit. It is called Million Kids, and that is because more than 1 million kids are trafficked each year throughout the world. And so one of the best ways for you to learn about human trafficking, especially if you're going to be doing a term paper or maybe in a school assignment on human trafficking, is simply to follow Million Kids on Facebook. So we're going to just wait just a minute because we've got a few more people coming in and sitting down, and then we'll pick up and run with this. So how many of you have heard about human trafficking? Have you talked about it in class, in school, and like that? Basically what we're talking about is people that are being forced into labor, where they're being violated, or forced into sex. And so we will talk about how all of that happens. Labor trafficking is something that is more common among young people than you realize. If you ever see those signs up there that say teen jobs, 13 to 19 make 400 bucks a week, and it'll say right on there, free transportation. Every time I see that, I go, really? You're 13 years old and you need free transportation for this job? Where are you going? Why do you need free transportation? What those are selling rigs. They get you out there and they move you away from your home, where you're not comfortable, where you don't know how to get help. And they'll have you out selling magazines or candy bars. Have you guys ever been at Lowe's down in the valley and some kid comes up and tries to sell you a candy bar in the parking lot? Those are on selling rings. And so don't get caught up in them. What happens is you don't get paid. So we have all kinds of jobs where they don't pay you. That is called labor trafficking. Or they will maybe hold your driver's license if you have one, or your identification. Or they will take you away from the people you know. That is labor trafficking. But for the most part today, we're going to talk about sex trafficking. So if you're doing a school assignment, one of the best resources is to follow Million Kids on Facebook. Now I get that most of you aren't on Facebook, it's for old codgers. But if you go on Facebook and you find Million Kids, you will see that every 3 or 4 hours we are posting new stories about sex trafficking cases, and many of them are right here in the Inland Empire. Do you know that just in Riverside County we have over 160 open cases of sex trafficking? That means that we have 160 cases where people are being forced into commercial sex. Commercial sex is another word for prostitution. And we don't want that to happen to you, so we're going to share with you. One of the things that happens is I have my own radio show. So if you're down in the valley, it might even play up here, that every Saturday afternoon on AM 590, The Answer, I have my own radio show. And we talk about human trafficking. This week we talked about the fact that the owner of the NFL Patriots was picked up in a massage parlor buying commercial sex, and he was caught up in a sex trafficking ring. So you may want to follow us. Also, by law, I have to tell you that I am partially funded by the Department of Justice. they require this disclaimer to let you know they're not responsible for my attitude. So, what are we talking about in sex trafficking? These are kids that are lured in, and forgive me for calling you kids, but I am older than you, so we'll call you kids, okay? I can see that you are not children. You are newer adults, but if you're under 18 and you're engaging in commercial sex, you are a victim of human trafficking. The most likely victim of human trafficking is a runaway teenager. Literally what will happen is 1 out of 5 kids who run away will be victims of sex trafficking in the first 48 hours. Usually what will happen is that a young person will meet a person on the internet and they fall in love. It can be a guy or a girl, and they get this fantasy relationship and they decide they're going to go out and meet up with that person. They crawl in the car, and the first thing you know, they lock the door, pull a gun on you, and throw your phone out the window. And your mom and dad is down at the police department filing a missing person report. So here's what I need you to know. Do not run away. I get that life gets tough. I was thinking about running away about 5 o'clock this morning, if you want to know the truth. It gets tough for all of us. But get a plan B. Have someone in your life you can go to and talk to so that you're not out there. Because once you run away, you have almost no resources. And some guy or girl will come up to you and go, hey, you know, I made $500 yesterday and so can you. That's called easy money. I'm going to tell you the 2 ways that you get tricked into human trafficking is falling in love with a fantasy relationship or falling in love with easy money. Easy money will be the most expensive money you ever earn. Because what is happening is they're going to have you out there having sex for money, except you will never get that money and you become a victim of human trafficking. So how many of us saw the movie Taken? Anybody? I'm waiting for Taken 13 to come out. I don't know how many of those movies they're going to make. That movie makes you think that they actually come along and kidnap you off the street. Now, I'm going to tell you that can't happen. It doesn't usually happen. We had a case down in San Bernardino not too long ago where that happened. We had a 17-year-old girl. She got mad at her mom. They'd gotten in a big knockdown, drag-out fight on Saturday morning. And so she went to the park, and she was sitting on top of a picnic bench, just kind of crying. She was all upset about the fight she had. A girl she didn't know, who was about 24, suddenly kind of appeared and sat with her on that picnic bench. And they started talking, and she was just kind of commiserating with her. Man, I get it. You know, I got in a fight with my mom, and they're starting to share stories. And they talked for about an hour and a half. And then suddenly this girl says, hey, come with me, I'll buy you breakfast. And a girl who normally would never go out and get in the car with a stranger trusted her new friend. And she went out and she got in that car, and the minute she got in the car, 2 guys got in the back seat. And they pulled a gun on her and kidnapped her and took her over to Compton and sold her into the gangs. And her life changed very quickly. So you can be kidnapped, but it usually is a crime in psychology. Let me share with you a case I had out of Nuevo down by Paris. This young girl is only 12 years old, and she's playing on Kick and Omegle. Now, I know none of you play on Kick anymore, but you did last year, I know you. Last year, she was on Kick. And her dad did not like that. She's not old enough to understand the dangers of Kick. So he started to say, honey, please don't be on that. Let me take you off that. Instead of cooperating with her dad, she got mad. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, he heard her window shut. She had been playing on the internet with a guy that she met that she thought was literally 16 from San Diego. And she decided she was going out the bedroom window and meet up with this guy. Her dad heard her window shut. And he's something of a cowboy. I quite like this guy. He said, I raced down the hall, and sure enough, she's gone. He said, I didn't even dress. I just jumped in my car and backed up. I looked down the street, and there is my 12-year-old daughter getting in the car with a total stranger at 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, I once started raving bananas. I raced down there, I slammed on the brakes, I pulled open the door, I pulled that guy out, and I just knocked him out unconscious. And what happened? Oh my gosh, we don't have a picture of him. We're going to get that in the next set. This guy's laying there like that. Knocked him out completely. I loved it. This girl thinks she's getting in the car with a guy who's 16 from San Diego. This guy is 27 and he's a registered sex offender. 10 seconds later and that girl's life would have been completely different. But here's what I want you to see. That guy did not come up there and break in that house and kidnap her, did he? He actually got her to send him a text saying, hey, my dad's putting the heat on me, come get me. He got her to crawl out a bedroom window and he got her to walk 3 blocks down the street at 3 o'clock in the morning and get in the car with someone she had never met. That's why we call it a crime of psychology. Every time I see one of these cases, it is a young person who did not understand what was about to happen to them based on the decisions they're making. So this is gangs and it's social media and gangs using social media. This is important up here because I'm going to tell you that I would guess that you don't have a lot of gangs in your community. And most of you look like you're smart enough to stay away from them if they're up here. But what you may not realize is gangs have changed. They're not like all hanging out on a street corner with their baggy pants and their rap music. They're using social media and you may not realize that you're talking to a gang guy. In fact, what is happening is they're using all these dating sites that many of you like Tinder and Meet Me and Plenty of Fish or My Life Out Loud. And you start talking to them and you think they look really, really cool. 90% of our cases have a gang relationship to them. It is all about the money. Literally what has happened is gangs are using their gang girls, and I need the girls to hear that really clear. 60% of our cases, the girl is recruited by another girl. And it's usually a girl that belongs to a gang, and her job is to recruit other girls into prostitution. So what is happening is gangs are using their young people to recruit. It looks like a boyfriend or a new girlfriend, and the next thing you know, you're out in commercial sex, and they are having you have sex for money, but they take all the money. Here's how it worked at Grossmont High. That's a high school that's about twice the size of your high school down in San Diego. The Tycoon gang put their gang girls and guys in that high school, and they recruited 100 kids just almost overnight. They were pretending to make a rap video. Who doesn't want to have fun and be rich and famous? And so all these kids thought they were going to make a rap video, but instead of that, they were recruited into prostitution. Over 100 kids, one of them was only 12 years old. What happened is the Tycoon gang joined forces with all these other gangs. If any of you want a career in law enforcement, this is what we call RICO. This is organized crime. This gang joined forces with all the other gangs, and each gang had a very specific assignment. Some of them recruited the girls, and they were mostly girls, 96 girls, and 94 girls, and 6 guys. Some of them provided them with drugs. Some of them moved the girls around. Some of them placed the ads on the internet. Some of them bought the motels where they were having sex. But what they also did was broke these kids. One of the questions, and this is one of the hard parts of this talk, you'll say to yourself, well, why don't they run? If it's me, I'm going to get out of here. First of all, they're not going to trick me. And number 2, I'm going to get out of there. I hope that's right. Believe me, I hope that's right. But this goes very, very quickly, and you don't realize what's going to happen. They will lock you in a closet for days. They burn you, they rape you, they film it. They cut you, they burn you with cigarette burns. They will tattoo you, and they will, in this case, all of those kids were tattooed with barcodes. They were sold over 46 cities, over 100 kids taken out of one high school, making rap videos and sold into prostitution. This is how it happened in Fresno. This Fresno gang was the Dog Pound gang. It's a small town, about 600,000 people. And the Dog Pound gang were young guys. They were 16 to 23 years old. And they went out there and they especially preyed on foster kids and homeless kids. And what they did was they lured them in like boyfriends. And then they started saying, you know, I need you to help me make some money. You know, I'm just a little short of cash. Will you just with my friend? And the next thing you know, these kids have quotas and they're having to make so much money a night. And they're being beaten and they're being drugged. And what happened is that this gang was making $30,000 a week just selling kids into prostitution right up there in Fresno. That money was not going to any of the kids that were being forced into prostitution. The gang was taking all the money and they were buying Bentleys and Range Rovers, party buses and boats. And what was crazy is this was being run from prison. And all of this happened at a high school in Fresno. We have this down in the valley more than you have it up here. We had a case out of Hemet in Paris where we went in and brought out $1.42 million in drug money, and it was the Sinaloa cartel right out of Hemet in Paris. This is San Bernardino. Imagine you're 15 years old and you're dating a gay guy. And you think you're really, really cool, and you think you're going to be exclusive to him. But his job is to deliver you to the gang, and now you're being controlled by these guns in here. That is why it is hard for these kids to get free. This is San Jacinto, and we went out there with 400 officers and brought in the Syringas and Mexican mafia. So what are they looking for? This is absolutely key. Available and vulnerable. So what does that mean? That means that they're looking for somebody that's willing to take chances, somebody who wants to be loved, somebody that's looking for a boyfriend or a girlfriend on the internet. I call that low-hanging fruit. They are playing the odds game. How do you not be available and vulnerable? Know who you are and what you stand for. Know your value and your worth. Find that warrior inside yourself. You know, one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn was self-esteem was a gift I gave myself. And it took me a long time to learn that. I always thought self-esteem was one of those things that cheerleaders had, and I didn't get to be a cheerleader. You know, or maybe if your folks are wealthy, but my folks weren't wealthy. So for a long time, I thought maybe I wasn't worth as much as other people. But one day I discovered that once I decide I'm valuable, nobody can take that from me. It's a gift I give myself, and if I decided I'm valuable. And that gave me the strength. I want you guys to know who you are and not take chances on the internet especially. Do you know that pedophiles on the internet are just working the odds game? And if you're easy to recruit, if you start to flirt with them and talk with them, then you're going to get yourself in trouble. The way you stay out of trouble is you just say no and they move on to somebody else that's easier. And that's how you're not available and vulnerable. This is available and vulnerable. If you're playing on Tinder and Meet Me and Plenty of Fish, and now some of the new ones, I'm going to talk about TikTok and Whisper and Tango and some of those that are out there and Like Me. Those pedophiles are preying on those particular sites looking to recruit in there. Well, I wrote a book about this. It's called Seduce, the Grooming of America's Teenagers. And this book is all about fantasy relationships. So I want to share with you a story. And I'm going to ask you to pretend that you're law enforcement. And I'm just like me, how did I know this is a bad guy? So this is a true story, and I want you to listen with this. I had a case where a woman was a very powerful executive woman. She had an 18-year-old daughter, and this girl is gold. This girl is a straight-A student. You see, somehow we think this is only going to happen to those dumb kids that aren't real bright. This happens to very smart kids, and that happened in this case. She's 18 years old, and she has a scholarship to go to college. This is May 1st, and this case is, she's going to graduate June 15th. She has a job, and she has a car, and her mom is a very powerful executive. What happened in this case is that this girl had been playing on the internet. And when Mom came home one night and told her about my talk, it was a Friday night. And Mom told her what I said, and to her amazement, this girl began to cry, and she went to her bedroom, and she came back with a passport and an airline ticket to Ireland. Mom just about freaked. This is Friday night, and that ticket is for Sunday morning. And she told her mom, I wasn't going to tell you till I got there because I didn't want you to stop me. What had happened is Mom knew she was playing Xbox with a guy for 9 months, but this girl is brilliant. She is a straight-A student. She has a full boat scholarship to go to college. She doesn't get any better than this girl. Even though this girl is very smart, she did not realize what had happened to her. This guy had convinced her to quit her job. She raised $2,000 and bought that airline ticket to Ireland. And she told her mom, I wasn't going to tell you till I got there. She quit her job and she quit school with a full boat scholarship to go to college. So how do we know? I want you to just yell it out. How do we know this guy's a bad guy? Anybody want to yell out? Yes. Say it real loud. Keep going. He had convinced her to take some really questionable behavior. You're right. Keep going. She doesn't know anything about him. You're more right than most people. Keep going. Anybody else? Yes. Yeah, he could be a girl. You know, you don't know. Doesn't know anything about him. Keep going. Anybody else? How about who raised the $2,000? How much did he raise? What's he giving up? Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting thing. Think about relationships. You see, if this guy had said to her, hey baby, it is only 6 weeks till you graduate, I'm going to wait for you. Don't come now. If you don't graduate, you'll never have your dreams come true. If he had said that, that is an empowering relationship, isn't it? I wouldn't have worried. But this is an exploitive relationship. Guess who raised all the money? She did. How much did he raise? Nothing. What's he giving up? Nothing. What's she giving up? Everything. All her future, the rest of her life. How about the fact, don't tell? If you're talking to someone on the internet and you don't know them and they tell you don't tell, I would tell everyone I know. Because they are putting you in a box. You're the only one giving stuff up. They're not giving up anything, are they? And so look at your relationships. Are they empowering relationships? You see, you're the generation that is meeting people on the internet. But nobody really is sharing with you what you should be looking for. When is it an empowering relationship and when is it an exploitive relationship? If she's doing all the giving, that's not a relationship, that's a negotiation. And she's losing, right? And so I want you to think about that. There's something more that this young man brought up that is really, really powerful here. When you meet a pedophile on the internet, and what is a pedophile? That is someone who is trying to violate a person sexually under the age of 18. And so they're trying to get a photograph of you. I'm going to show you where naked photos go on the internet very shortly. And so if you meet somebody like that on the internet, they only give you a little bit of information. And here's the important part. You will make up what you want. And you keep going back to that person believing they're promising you that, but you don't know that because you don't know them. So it's a fantasy relationship, and I want you to think about that on the internet. Well, I've just come out with my new book called Societal Shift, A World Without Borders, A Home Without Walls. And what is happening here is that we are undergoing a major change in our society. I want to share with you that I believe that you are living at the most important time in all of history. I mean this with all my heart. I'm not just blowing smoke here. I believe that you're the most important generation that has ever walked the face of the earth. and that you have the opportunity that no other group of young people has ever had. You will be the first generation in all of history that will be the leaders as the entire world is connected by internet. Do you know that right now there are 4.7 billion internet users? Next year, for the first time in all of history, there will be 6 billion people all around the world come together. It has never happened before. That is why you're the most important generation, because I believe how we learn to use technology with respect and responsibility will lay the foundation for all future generations. I believe that where we're at in history right now is more important than the Industrial Revolution. Have you ever thought about your life in the timeline of history? All the things that happened up to this day in your life, and now here you are, the generation that are the leaders for the future timeline of history. You will be the first generation in all of history that can reach the entire world, but you're also the first generation where the entire world can reach you. And nothing in our society is preparing you for that. Not your parents, not your teachers. Because what is happening is this technology is changing so fast that we cannot keep you safe. Right now, technology can be the greatest thing in your whole life. Even the poorest child in the entire world can get a Harvard education if you choose to use technology to help yourself. You will have advanced medicine that will cure cancer we don't even know exists today. But there's a challenge with this because you guys are technology wizards. You get all these new apps and you try them out and it's natural for you. You're out there trying out apps and games that we can't even understand. So you are rushing ahead. It's like this great societal experiment where your folks might be technophobic and some of them are techno-impotent. And they're running along behind you going, you be careful on that thing now. And you all know what I'm talking about. They can't tell what you're on really, and you know that. So what does that mean? That means that if you decide to take chances on the internet, we can't fix it. If you decide that you're going to do risky behavior, we can't save you. We cannot save you. What is happening is most of you are able to use technology wisely and with respect and responsibility. But we now know that we're losing about 8% of our young people a day out in the World Wide Web because technology is a place where we can't stop if you're going to try to take risky behavior. My book is called A Home Without Walls because it is. Think about this, 87% of you sleep with your phone. Do you realize what that means? At 3 o'clock in the morning in your underwear, in your most vulnerable place, a pedophile comes right between the sheets going bzz, 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 right here. And they can reach you at any time, day or night, as long as you have access to that phone. You see, a world without borders for you is a world without borders for predators, for pedophiles, for literally cartels, organized crime, and yes, gangs. And so we have to take a look at how this works. You see, these bad guys are out there trying out these technologies, and us as law enforcement is running along behind. We have to wait till some of you get violated till we can figure out how they're using it for bad. So I need you guys to be the leaders, because this technology has reached a point where we can't see what you're doing, not your parents, not your teachers, and not even law enforcement. Most of your new apps now are encrypted. If you follow me on Facebook, you will see they were in encrypted messaging. That means that if you're in encryption, we can't help you if you end up being violated. You have disappearing video, you have live streaming, we call that vaporware. Poof, it's gone. You know, if a parent doesn't walk into a room when live streaming is taking place, or if law enforcement isn't there and you're not saving it, then we can't see it. It takes us 6 hours to get a search warrant at a minimum. So if you choose to use this technology risky, you're going to get burned. However, you can also choose to use it in a way that's leadership, because you will recognize when it's a pedophile long before we will. And we need to train each other and train law enforcement. We have disappearing photos and disappearing video. Snapchat says now they have Snap Cash. Their motto was now you can monetize a selfie. And you say to yourself, really, what kind of selfie am I selling here? It's not a dog or cat that is going on. This is new, Live Me. How many of you know Live Me? I love Live Me. You see, technology is not bad. It depends on how you use it. This will be amazing technology. Live Me is basically live streaming on steroids. You know, you can go on, you can sing, you can dance, and it'll alert tens of thousands of people that you're on the air. It will also tell them where you're transmitting from, by the way. And right now, they can talk to you by texting, going back and forth, and they can give you virtual coins to kind of give you reward. I'm going to tell you that probably by May or June, they'll be able to give you real money, and it will change our world. So Live Me is not bad. I mean, you'll be able to have Home Shopping Network right there in your living room if you want to start your own business on Live Me. It won't be long till you can do that. But what happened in this case is this little girl's only 9 and she's twerking. Okay, how many of you know what twerking is? The whole room except the teachers, okay? Okay, I always tell old people that if you're over 40, you're going to need a chiropractor, and if you're over 70, you're going to need an ambulance. Thank you, Miley Cyrus. Okay, she's 9, she's twerking. You know, she doesn't understand why she's moving like she is, but she's pretty good at it. But what happened is she's twerking on Live Me with no mom and dad there. And so she's pretty good, and people are rewarding her with virtual coins, and she's 9, so she's been rewarded with stickers all her life. And pretty soon she's taking off her top and she's taking off her bottom. And by the time mom and dad discovered her, she's totally naked, twerking in front of 10,000 people on Live Me. And that is being freeze-framed and sold in the dark web as child pornography. And that young girl will never be able to get that back. She will be out there forever. We have to understand that technology can be very powerful to the good or very powerful to the bad. I am very concerned about TikTok. How many of you are on TikTok or know TikTok? TikTok is the new Live Me, and it is just bought Musically, and it will change. It just surpassed Facebook in the number of users yesterday. And it will change the way you communicate, because what it does is it puts you in this limelight, but it alerts tens of thousands of people. You don't know them. It isn't like Facebook where you can friend them or unfriend them. This is transmitting out to thousands of people, people that some of them may not have goodwill for you. I want to show you a video because there's some new technology coming out, and I want to show you how this works. So is it real? I like to show that, especially in gyms where it looks just like it. The reason I share that with you is I want you to think about truth, because you are the generation that will have more information provided to you than any other generation that's ever lived. And so how do you evaluate what's true? You know, when I was younger, if it was in the paper, it better be true, you got fired. But now on the internet, all day long, you have information being fed to you. You don't know who's sending it to you and whether or not they're legitimate and whether or not they're telling you the truth. And that's important because you're building relationships based on that information that you receive. You know, and so I'd ask you, do you know that 85% of college graduates cannot tell the difference between a blog, an ad, and a news release. So the next time you see information, ask yourself, who's printing it? How do I know it's true? What is their ulterior motive in giving me that information? Why do I show you that picture of that whale? Because Facebook bought something called Faytech, and this is technology. I need you to hear this real clear. This is technology where you'll be able to insert images in live streaming and take images out. So you won't be able to believe your eyes. Why is that important? Think of the number of cases where law enforcement is being charged with extra violence as you're seeing them find a guy, and you're going, why is he beating on that guy? What's he doing? He's using excess violence. Except at another angle, you look in there and you see a gun that you couldn't see from the other angle. This technology, very shortly, they'll be able to insert an image of a gun and take an image out. So not only will you have to evaluate who's sending you information, you're going to have to evaluate what you see. So I'm going to give you a test here. I want you to raise your hand. Who has the most internet users? Who believes it's the United States? Who believes it's China? Who believes it's India? Who believes it's Japan? Japan almost always wins. Some of you aren't voting. Who believes it's Russia? Okay, Russia's known for hacking, right? Okay, the answer is China. So why do I ask you that question? I want you to think about what happens when you go on the internet. You know, have you ever thought who owns the internet? In fact, I'm going to ask you, who owns the internet? Yell it out. Nobody? China? Bill Gates? Google? Okay, the answer is nobody. So you're right. So can you think of anything else in your life that nobody owns? And think about the power of that. If nobody owns the internet, is it private? So let me ask you this. If the internet is not private, why on earth would anybody send a naked photo on it? Have you ever thought about where naked photos go when you hit send? It's an interesting thing because all of us get behind the internet and we kind of make decisions we normally wouldn't make. We send things, can we have some quiet here, thank you? We send things we don't normally send, and we say things we don't normally say. And it's an interesting thing that is taking place because no one owns the internet. So where does all that stuff go? You see, you think like American citizens, like you have a right to privacy, you know, the First and Fourth Amendment, but it is not called the US Web. It is called the World Wide Web. And I can guarantee you that there are many people that see everything you send out. Nobody ever promised you that it was private out there. In fact, I have a couple of rules on this. Number one rule is that when you hit send, it will go places you never expected. And number two, you can't get it back, and it will be used against you in ways you never thought possible. I had a young man call me last December. I'll never forget this. He seemed like a great young man. Might be someone in your audience. I don't know where he was from. He was about 15, and he sounded like a football player. And he said, Miss Singleton, I'm in trouble. Can you help me? And what happened there, he told me, he said, I had a girlfriend, and I really, really cared about her. And he said, what happened is that we got in a fight. We had done some things maybe we shouldn't have done, and we filmed it. And we got in this fight, and I was really, really hurt, and I was really mad. And he said, I know I should not have done this, but I was hurt, and I showed it to some of my friends. He said, it's been about a week, and we're back together again. And he said, but yesterday, this was Monday, he said yesterday, it was Tuesday, this was Monday, she had gotten 2 emails, one from the UK and one from New York. Both of them had that photo. One of them wanted money and one of them wanted sex. And she broke up with him again. He said, can you help me get that back? I can guarantee you that it will be used in ways you never dreamed possible. So how do you know if you're talking to a pedophile? Well, you get an instant message like this. It's usually an Instagram or a Snapchat. Here's the first hint you're talking to a pedophile. If they come in on one app and they take you to another app, run for your life. They are trying to verify you're not a cop. And so that's the first thing. Number two, they already are verifying that they have control of you because you're following them. So you get one of these deals, only it's really this guy. And this guy is ugly, okay? I can't imagine a 14-year-old who says, hey, baby, you're hot. But what happened is he's got 300 victims because he looks like this to our kids. I want to talk to you about sextortion because this is the biggest thing that is happening to our young people. This is where you get tricked into sending a naked photo, either through a video game chat room. This is happening to more young men than it is young women. And so more women are trafficked, more young men are sextorted. Right now they say that 9,000 kids in America every day are being blackmailed by a naked photo. 58% of them are going out to meet their pedophile. So I'm going to show you how this happens. You meet someone on the internet and you get a fantasy relationship. You have no idea that you're talking to 6 or 8 or 10 different people, and these are them. And I'm going to tell you, they're not very pretty. And you get this fantasy relationship, and they talk you into sending a naked photo. Only it's this guy right here. And once they get those photos, they sell these out across the United States. In this ring, as you can see, they lived all over the United States. They had thousands of young people who had sent them photos that were being blackmailed. Not one of those kids realized they were talking to 6 different men all across the United States. This is our biggest case, and this is my case from Riverside County, and I want you to see this. There is nothing trick going on here. This is Facebook. It isn't, TikTok or any of the new ones. This is Facebook. This man was married and he had 3 kids, and he's a realtor in Hemet. He got the photograph of a young girl that he called Marissa Garcia, and she was a prostitute. She is making a lot of money having sex. She's got a new car, she's got new clothes, and she goes to Vegas. Do you know that more than 200 people saw her Facebook page and contacted Marissa Garcia, which is really this guy, and said, show me how to make this kind of money. Pretending to be her, he said, let me set you up with my best customer, he's great in bed. More than 100 of our kids took it to another level, and they showed up and had sex with this man. When he was through, he set them down and he said, let's look at the videotape we just made together. Not one of those kids realized they were being filmed in that sex act. When he was through, he put 17 of them out into hardcore prostitution. But here's what's powerful. I was training a whole group of people just like you. And at the end of the second session, 2 young girls about your age came up to me. They had long, kinky hair, and they were laughing. They thought it was a joke. They handed me their phone, and they said, Miss Singleton, you think this is something? Because we're just playing a game with this girl. We're just playing a game with this girl. I have never met a young person like yourself that realized what was about to happen. Had they not come forward that day, 100 more kids got violated. Here's what's powerful. This guy is serving 122 years in prison for violating young people just like yourself. So what does a pedophile look like? Looks like the guy on the right. He was a teacher, believe it or not, and he hung out in skateboard parks. He wasn't even on the internet. He gave out free skateboards, he gave out helmets and knee pads, and he made friends with guys at skateboard parks. Some of you are acting like maybe you know this guy. Do you know him? It's David Joder. Anyway, he bought them helmets, he bought them iPads, he bought them pizza, he gave them beer, and pretty soon he's having sex with them. And pretty soon those young men are being sold out over a 5-state area. This is in Riverside County. Now I'm going to share with you about the dark web because I want you to understand why somebody wants your naked photo. This guy is ugly, if you're wondering. But he ran the largest child pornography ring in the world. And so let me talk to you about child pornography, what I'm talking about. If you're a young person that has a picture of yourself and you're under 18 and you don't have clothes on, or you're engaging in a sex act, that is child pornography. If you're receiving that from somebody, you're receiving child pornography. If you're sending it, you're distributing it. And if you're collecting it, you're collecting child pornography. That is against the law, and there are very long sentences. But what's really important is there are thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people, just like this man, that is trying to get your photo so they can sell it in the dark web. And that is why I need you to be very careful about photos. If you think of the internet as a bucket of water, the top 3% is how we live. This is what we call the clear web. We have search engines. We have IP addresses. We can find each other. Below that's the deep web with big corporations, and below that is the dark web. You can't just go from the clear web to the dark web. You need a special browser to do that. And so what is happening is pedophiles, just like Mr. Swartz ran, 215,000 pedophiles found each other in the clear web, and they formed a community in the dark web. If Mr. Swartz or some of his friends could trick you into sending a naked photo, he could sell one photo and make $215,000 in one transaction. That's why they're looking for that. But more important, you need to know that the U.S. government looks at every email, every Snapchat, every Dropbox, every live stream that goes out, and they have an algorithm looking for the image of a naked person or a sexual image under the age of 18. Once they find that, they send it back to Quantico, Virginia. And what is happening in this case is they have now collected more than 215 million images of minors without clothes on or in a sex act. The 15 million of them are selfies that people like yourself are sending to each other. So if you know a young person that has sent a naked photo to their boyfriend or girlfriend, you need to tell them they're in a photo album at the FBI in Quantico, Virginia, so don't do it again. There is nothing private on the internet. All of this can be intercepted. So I want to talk about video gaming chat rooms as we close. This is a case of an 11-year-old girl who was in a Minecraft chat room. Now, I am not against a video game. I'm not. I get video gaming. But if you're 11 years old and you're in a public chat room, you're going to be on there with people just like this. This little girl was 11 and she met this guy, and mom and dad did not realize she was in trouble. One night he showed up at their house, they put her to bed. On Saturday night, they went to get her up for church in the morning, and she's in another state being raped by this guy. Here is a case right here of a young man who's 14 years old. He's playing on a video game. I believe that it might have been Fortnite, but I'm not sure. Anytime you're playing on Fortnite, you're in a public chat room, so be careful. In this case, he met this young girl right here, and they started talking about sex. He says, hey, why don't you come by one night? She lies to him, imagine that on the internet, and says, I only live an hour away. She actually lived 8 hours away. He said, why don't you come by and I'll pull up in the middle of the night and I'll sneak out and we'll go out in your car and have a little sex, and my folks will never know. I'll get back in the house. She drives 8 hours with her friend. He comes running out. He doesn't realize what's about to happen. He jumped in their car. They pulled a gun on him, they locked the door, and they took him 8 hours away to New Mexico. They held him hostage for 5 days and raped him over and over. They later left him naked alongside a dirt road outside of Albuquerque. This all happened on a video game chat room. So how many of you know Momo? Okay, there's some talk that Momo is a fraud, but I'm going to tell you that I don't believe it is. And it doesn't matter to me about the icon. I want you to understand the technology that's taking place here. Anytime you get involved in a game of dare, you're going to lose, and Momo is a game of dare. It can be any icon, it doesn't matter. Usually what happens with Momo is this thing pops up and it says, hey, you want to play a game of dare, and it gives you a calculator and tells you to pick a number, any number. Doesn't matter what number you're picking. Because what these games of dare are a virus. And what will happen is the minute you pick any number, it puts a virus right into your cell phone. And if you have a naked photo in there, it'll go immediately in there and isolate that. If you have an Instagram account and you have your directory, Momo will go and find your photos and then it'll find your directory. So you say, okay, you take the first dare and you take the second dare, and pretty soon you say, Momo, I don't want to play anymore. And what'll happen is Momo will go, wait a minute, isn't this a picture of you and your girlfriend? And isn't this your Instagram account? Because if you quit, I'm going to take this photo and I am going to go through your entire Instagram account, and you are not allowed to quit. And the next thing you know, you're being blackmailed. They will get you to cut your arm. They'll get you to drink urine. They will get you literally, some of them are drunk jumping off a bridge. Here's what's important from a technology point of view. As long as you have that photo in your photo album, you are not safe. So it's not enough to not send a naked photo because it can be intercepted. But number two, don't store them in your photo album, because as long as they're in there and you play a game of dare, they can access that. It is a virus, and I want you to understand it. There's a third more important subject here, and that is the only way out of that trap is to tell. Anytime you send a naked photo, they will tell you, do not tell. You're in there playing a game of Fortnite or having a great time, and this guy right here runs one of those pedophile rings. So you all of a sudden meet this girl in your chat room and you kind of fall in love. And this is happening 9,000 times a day, according to the Department of Center for Disease Control. And there, this girl all of a sudden is like there, and you're like, wow, this is good. And you start getting to be friends, and this goes on for weeks. You think you have a real relationship, and one day this girl sends you a naked photo, and now she wants one back, and you go, I don't know about that. And she goes, but I gave you mine, I'm so embarrassed, help me. And you take that photo and you send it off, only it's really this guy right here. And this is called sextortion, sex and extortion. This guy right here sells it to 27,000 people, and your life will change forever. And here's what I want you to see. All of a sudden, 20,000 people know where you live because photos have GPS on them. They want more photos. They want better photos. They want photos of sex, and they tell you not to tell. Your only way out is to tell. They put you in a box, and they have the key. They have all the power, you have none, until you tell someone. I get, maybe you can't tell your mom about sex. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But tell a school resource officer, or a local cop, or a counselor, or a teacher, or a pastor, or a priest. Tell somebody it is your only way out. I want to close here. It is up to you. You will be the greatest generation that ever lives. And I believe that most of you want to be leaders. And especially for your younger brothers and sisters, we need you to use technology with respect and responsibility, because we can't save you if we don't. I want to close now with this video, maybe. Only we just went out of our thing, so maybe not. We just developed a technical glitch because we just went off completely. So what I really want you to see here is the only way out in these cases is to tell someone. These are large-scale rings, and they will blackmail you until they have you absolutely cornered. But you do not have to give in to that. Now I want to see if we can close with this video here.
These are roughly 28,835 jelly beans. I counted out 500 of them and used those to weigh the rest. In this pile, there's one jelly bean for each day that the average American will live. You might have more beans in your life, or maybe less, but on average, this is the time we have. Here's a single bean. It's your very first day. A special day, but kind of a rough day on everyone involved. Add 364 more and you have the first year of your life. Now, for a sense of scale, here are your first 15 years, 5,475 days, which brings us to the threshold of adulthood. And at that moment, this is the time that we have left. And this is, on average, what we will do with all that time. We will be asleep for a total of 8,477 days. If we're lucky, some of that time we'll be sleeping next to someone we love. We will be in the process of eating, drinking, or preparing food for 1,635 days. We'll be at work, hopefully doing something satisfying, for the equivalent of 3,202 of those days. 1,099 days will be spent commuting or traveling from one place to another, maybe a little bit more if you live in LA. On average, we will watch television in one form or another for a total of 2,676 days. Household activities, like chores and tending to our pets and shopping, will take another 1,576 days, and we will care for the needs and well-being of others, our friends and family, for 564 days. We'll spend 671 days bathing, grooming, and doing all other bathroom-related activities, and another 720 days will go to community activities, like religious and civic duties, charities, and taking classes. After we remove all those beings, this is what remains. This is the time that we have left. Time for laughing, swimming, making art, going on hikes, text messages, reading, checking Facebook, playing softball, maybe even teaching yourself how to play the guitar. So what are you going to do with this time? How much of it do you think you've already used up? If you only had half of it, what would you do differently? What about half of that? How much time have you already spent worrying instead of doing something that you love? What if you just had one more day? What are you going to do today?
Thank you.